using the parlays against one another, right, and being able to get a little bit of juice consig, I found to be a little interesting.
Believe me, all the rhombuses and parallelograms are constantly trying to search and find out those things every day. It's one of the battles that you know, as you expand the menu, you encounter new battles.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer, too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
With the onset of NIL and the transfer portal, it is allowing players to develop further in college, and guys that would maybe be stuck on the bench at a power program and not have as much shine are having the ability to find themselves in the spotlight.
Lane Kiffin came out and said we need to get bigger and more physical in terms of the offense and defensive lines, and that's why he went out and recruited that talent.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
And now you have to qualify, and these majors, you got to go do it, man. Like, and it just comes off really petty to sit up there and be like, I'm not.
You know what you signed up for, so I don't like the pettiness, and I 100% think Taylor Gooch should be in the major championships.
Mm-hmm.
So in the same note, I'm saying this, but also it's like, hey, this is the world in which we live in right now, and you don't deserve anything.
Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome to NewsWire on SportsGrid. I'm Mike Blewitt, your host today, stepping in for Craig Mish. And there's obviously big news in front of us, not the least of which, we'll get to the NBA, we'll get to the NHL. But a seismic decision in the NCAA landscape comes down this morning, press conference yesterday with Charlie Baker and the Power 5 commissioners. The NCAA and its leagues are planning to move forward with a multi-billion-dollar agreement to settle 3 pending federal antitrust cases, according to ESPN. It's reported by Pete Thamel and Dan Murphy. And there's a lot to sift through, and it could take an hour just to go through all of this. But high level, this will settle the 3 antitrust cases: House versus the NCAA, Hubbard versus the NCAA, and Carter versus the NCAA. And I will talk about this at length with Darren Heitner on Inside the Transfer Portal throughout the weekend. But bottom line is, all Division I athletes dating back to 2016 are eligible to receive a share as part of these settlement cases. And moving forward, there will be effectively a revenue share of the revenue that's coming into the schools. And schools will be allowed to pay up to $20 million a year per school. For the schools at the top end paying $20 million, they'll obviously have an advantage over the schools that can't afford to pay that much or frankly don't have that much revenue coming in, but it remains the haves and the have-nots. But safe to say, a massive story. Details will continue to unfold. There will be shockwaves sent throughout the NCAA, and it will create changes amongst the NCAA, cutting of sports. There will be a lot of different ways in which this will get impacted, and we'll follow this story as it continues to morph and evolve over the next few weeks. The payments will be made over the course of the next few months, and the revenue shares will start at the beginning of the 2025 athletic season. So let's move on to the NBA. We obviously had a big game last night where Boston went to a 2-0 lead over the Pacers. They win that game 126-110. Jaylen Brown, another massive performance. Career high for him are 40 points, along with 5 rebounds and 2 assists. Jason Tatum chimes in with 23 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. And Derek White, a fantastic game for him, chipping in 23 points. As the Celtics take a 2-0 commanding lead, but as Jason Tatum mentioned in this upcoming clip, the Knicks had a 2-0 lead on the Pacers as well.
Jason, just how pleased are you to get out of here up 2-0? heading to Indy for Game 3, what you guys were able to accomplish here?
Yeah, I mean, winning is hard. Winning in the playoffs is tough. It never goes, I guess, how you expect it to. Each game is different in its own right. It did feel good to finally win a game 2, especially at home. So, but we understand that New York was up 2-0 and they ended up losing that series. So, far from relaxed, but you take a win whenever you get it.
Jason, how important is Jalen's voice? Obviously, his play has been big, but his voice, becoming more vocal. I know, in one of the games you struggled early in the playoffs, he was like, Jason found his rhythm. We got to see him find his rhythm even more. Has he kind of been in your ear for a lot of this playoff run, motivating you and pushing you? Like, what's his voice been like for you and the team?
Yeah, I think it's important for every guy in that locker room to speak up, right? We all respect each other, and that comes from trust. We see the work that everybody puts in every single day and the growth from, whenever your first year here was until now, the growth and development of every single guy. And we have that environment where, everybody has a voice from the top guy to, the last man on the bench, right? We all in this together. You need to encourage somebody, do so. If you see something that we're doing wrong, it's your job to speak up.
So good stuff there from Jason Tatum. Jaylen Brown obviously having a massive impact on this series, on the postseason, and on the NBA season as a whole. I think we'll talk about this a little bit later in the show with Coach James Young, our lead basketball analyst. But sometimes we take for granted what the star in Jason Tatum will do, but it's oftentimes the number 2 player like a Jaylen Brown that can impact who wins an NBA title, and Jaylen Brown clearly putting them on the right path. Pascal Siakam now talking about the Pacers' defense. Their offense is talked about much and what their pace looks like and how many points they can put up, but he talks about their defense right here and how they can step up.
I think our defense got a lot better, and I think obviously for me coming in at that time of the year, and I can see the progress that the team has made, in everyone, the commitment from the coaches, from the players, and we're here for a reason, and we're here because we did all the right things and we continue to do the right things, and I'm proud of our guys. Obviously Drew, big part of our defense. Aaron, Ty, making efforts. Miles, just go down the line. Guys are getting better, and that's the reason why we're here. And we're going to continue to get better. Obviously tonight it wasn't the game that we wanted to be, but we rectified for the next game.
I would say it'll have to be a lot better if the Celtics are going to drop 126 points and put themselves in a position to go up 2-0. The Pacers are going to have to be better defensively as well as continuing to drop as many points as they possibly can and utilizing that pace. So Tyrese Halliburton obviously exited the game early due to a sore left hamstring last night. He left in the third quarter, and Pacers coach Rick Carlisle said that he aggravated that injury that he suffered earlier in the season. Now that's a problem because Halliburton missed quite a bit of time during the year, and it impacted his play when he came back from that injury. So hopefully he's good to go. I don't feel great about it right now, but he's got a day to rest up before they play tomorrow night. Indiana obviously trails 2-0, and the game is tomorrow in Indianapolis. Another NBA story, Josh Giddey. NBA closes its investigation into Josh Giddey. He was... there were allegations. Police previously determined they wouldn't pursue any charges, but there were allegations surrounding an inappropriate relationship with an underage girl. They surfaced on social media in late November, but Giddey cleared from any wrongdoing by the police and cleared from any further sanctions by the NBA, at least as we know today. Moving on to the WNBA, the Indiana Fever looking to secure their first win of the season versus the Los Angeles Sparks. They lost to Seattle Storm on Wednesday to fall 0-5. They lost 85-83. Number 1 overall pick Caitlin Clark and the Fever are hoping to get on the winning side of the ledger tonight. Staying with basketball, Duke and Kansas will face off in November in Las Vegas. Two of the most storied programs, obviously, in college basketball history. 9 national championships, 32 Final Four appearances between them. They will tip it off in Las Vegas. So that'll be a fun one for anybody that wants to travel out there. I appreciate that college basketball has done this over the years, trying to inject some juice into the early part of the season, which is often swallowed up by the NFL and even college football. So we'll see if Duke and Kansas can move the needle when it comes to Vegas in November. Onto the ice. The Edmonton Oilers defeated the Dallas Stars in Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. Final score was 3-2, so the Oilers get off to a good start there. Connor McDavid and the Oilers trying to get back to the Stanley Cup Finals for the first time in quite a while. Last thing on Scotty Scheffler, I don't know how much this story will remain a part of the news with Scotty Scheffler, but the Louisville Metro Police Department has taken corrective action against the police officer who is Detective Gillis, who arrested Scotty Scheffler because he did not have his body cam turned on. So Detective Gillis, this is a quote, Detective Gillis did not have his body-worn camera operationally ready as required by our policy. Chief Jacqueline Gwynn Villarreal announced on Thursday. Louisville Mayor Craig Greenberg said there's no video available of Gillis's initial interaction with Scheffler. I think that's going to obviously hurt Louisville's case if there ever was one. So Scotty Scheffler cleared right there. Phillies are on fire. We're going to talk about that with Matt Lutovsky next. In addition to Matt Lutovsky, we'll have Jim Gazzale later in the show. And as I said, Coach Young to go over the NBA playoffs. So when we come back, we will talk about those Phillies. They won their 6th straight. It's been a long time since they've been this hot. How long? You got to go back 2 centuries in order to track it. We'll be right back.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
That was Aaron Rodgers' thing. It's your quarterback in the first round.
Yeah.
It's a luxury pick. We don't have the luxury. We're trying to win right now. I'm in a window right now, and you're going to say, no, we're going to plan this for the future. With a guy who had 4 years, 4 seasons ended by injury. 4. Like, Michael Penix is a walking injury. Like, what are you doing taking him in the top 10?
The Bostonian versus the Book.
And now you have to qualify, and these majors, you got to go do it, man. Like, and it just comes off really petty to sit up there and be like, I'm not.
You know what you signed up for. So I don't like the pettiness, and I 100% think Taylor Gooch should be in the major championships.
Mm-hmm.
So in the same note, I'm saying this, but also it's like, hey, this is the world in which we live in right now, and you don't deserve anything.
Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
NewsWire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Back on NewsWire again, Mike Blewitt in for Craig Mish, and I welcome in Matt Lutovsky of the Sporting News. He's going to talk some baseball with us. Matt, good to see you again. And clearly, the Phillies are on a run that we haven't seen in quite some time. In fact, they're on a 29-6 run over a 35-game stretch, which is their best stretch since 1892, which was the year that Grover Cleveland was elected to his 2nd term as U.S. president, the only president to have non-consecutive terms. see what happens in November. But at present, Grover Cleveland, the only one to have that. And right now, they beat the Rangers 5-2 in the finale of a 3-game set at Citizens Bank Park. It's their 7th sweep. They have been extremely dominant and yet still find themselves over the long haul in what will be a dogfight for the division, correct?
Yeah, I think so. Going into the year, their over-under wins was about 88.5, and that was noticeably below Atlanta's. And I think even right now, a lot of people would say, well, Atlanta's the better team or the more talented team. Is that true? I don't know. Philly's really good. Like, this isn't a total fluke by any means. But I think you look at it and their schedule hasn't been great. Now, part of the reason their schedule doesn't look that great is because they're beating teams, and that's obviously weighing teams' records down. But, they swept the Padres in there. That was obviously really nice. And, I'm not going to just totally throw it out. There were some other decent teams in there that they've held their records down. But we'll see once they start getting into the meat of their schedule. But in their division, there really isn't anyone else who is that good other than the Braves. So that's going to help them. That's going to help them keep stacking wins for sure. And they're a really good team. Atlanta's a really good team. I think it's going to be a dogfight all summer, and we'll see how it goes. Anytime a team starts this hot, we know there's going to be some players who are overachieving a bit. That's inevitable. We know it's going to start to even out a bit, whether that's just because the play evens out or because of injury. One of those two things is going to happen. But at the end of the year, are they healthy? Are they ready to go in the postseason? And there's no doubt in my mind that if this team is healthy and if this team is ready to go, they're going to be a problem in the postseason. And they have a really good chance of making the World Series and potentially even winning it.
We've got Matt Lutovsky here from Sporting News talking about the NL East, and obviously the Phillies on fire. But the Braves just 6 games off the pace, which you could look at it either way, right? 6 games is a pretty big lead considering it's not quite yet Memorial Day, but there's also months to go. We're not even through 2 months of the season, so we have a lot more time for the Braves, who are every bit as talented as any team in the league, to be able to track them down. Right now, though, the odds are flat on FanDuel. You'd find the Phillies to win the division at -110, tied with the Braves at -110. I think everything you've said, Matt, plays into that, right? The Phillies have a soft schedule, and yes, they are impacting the fact that their schedule looks soft, but 6 games to this point for a team like the Braves, I don't think it particularly matters. Not to mention the fact that divisional titles, they mean a little bit more than they used to, but when it comes to the playoffs, we kind of don't care all that much.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sometimes, teams worry about seeding and they try to play that game, but it's not as if they're going to go all out. They're going to push a guy who might be a little sore, a little dinged up, just so they can get the divisional title. They know they're going to be in the playoffs. For the most part, that's what matters. They're going to worry more about setting their rotation up and things like that for the postseason. But I will say this, if you give me flat odds for 2 teams and one of them's got a 6-game lead, I'm going to take that team. So even though even if you like the Braves more than the Phillies, well, they don't have better odds than the Phillies right now. So I think, that's one way to look at it if you're the type that really wants to bet on divisional races in May.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff there. Any chance that any of the other three teams, the Mets, the Marlins, and the Nationals, are not terrible for the rest of the year? Any chance that any of the 3 of them can break out to at least be an average team?
I think so. I don't think those teams are terrible, or at least some of them aren't terrible on paper. Like I said, I mean, they're in a real tough division, though, and that's going to be part of what holds them down. So they might be decent teams, but you got to play the Phillies, you got to play the Braves as many times a year as they do, and that's going to keep holding them down. So, are they going to really break out and be a threat to either the Braves or the Phillies? I don't think so. But, they're going to give them a tougher time. You see a team that many times throughout the year, and eventually it starts to wear on you a little bit.
Okay, let's move over to Paul Skeens. He's obviously a story now with Pittsburgh. I think it's a great thing for baseball that you could see the number 1 overall pick break out and be as impactful as he has been. 16 innings pitched, 4 walks, 21 Ks, 1 flat whip of 1, and a 2.25 ERA. He's been great through his first 3 starts.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just as advertised. Rarely does this happen. And his first start, he gave up some runs. It was a little rocky. It was a shorter start, but he's just nasty. You could just see it. The generational talent wasn't a lie. I mean, this guy's averaging about 99.5 on his fastball, throwing a hard slider, throwing a hard changeup, which when I was younger, you never would have seen a guy throwing his changeup as hard as he does. And there's just no getting around it. The guy's nasty. The guy has all the stuff. And all you can hope now is that he doesn't get hurt. And I almost hate to say that. I almost hate to say it out loud, but that's always the worry with pretty much every single young pitcher, especially one who throws this hard. But he has the stuff. There's no getting around it. A high ground ball rate to go with the nasty stuff, inducing weak contact. It's pretty much everything you want in a pitcher.
Last thing, about 30 seconds here. Rob Manfred says the robot umpires unlikely to be ready for 2025. They're doing some testing. They've run into technical issues, growing consensus in large part based on what we're hearing from players that the challenge should be the form of ABS if and when we bring it to the big leagues as a starting point. So delays on the transition to technology taking over the balls and strikes.
Yeah, no one wants to see the umpire with the huge strike zone or the more so the inconsistent strike zone. I think that's the thing that batters hate, pitchers hate, and fans hate. But at the same time, I don't know. I'm getting a little sick of robots, and it just creates problems. And the mere fact that they're like, well, we're going to have a challenge system with this. Well, if you're doing it this way, why can you challenge it? So that's my take.
Great stuff as always from Matt Lutovsky from Sporting News. We'll be right back after this.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
That was Aaron Rodgers' thing. To a quarterback in the first round.
Yeah.
It's a luxury pick. We don't have the luxury. We're trying to win right now. I'm in a window right now, and you're going to say, no, we're going to plan this for the future. With a guy who had 4 seasons ended by injury. 4. Like, Michael Penix is a walking injury. Like, what are you doing taking him in the top 10?
The Bostonian versus the Book.
And now you have to qualify, and these majors, you got to go do it, man. Like, and it just comes off really petty to sit up there and be like, I'm not.
You know what you signed up for. So I don't like the pettiness, and I 100% think Taylor Gooch should be in the major championships.
Mm-hmm.
So in the same note, I'm saying this, but also it's like, hey, this is the world in which we live in right now, and you don't deserve anything.
Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
NewsWire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not one, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
late
sort of
night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Close out this portion of the show. We'll have guests coming on in the second half, Jim Gazzale and Coach James Young, to talk hoops with us. But this is the SportsGrid Sound Off. We're going to start it off with Jaylen Brown talking about his ability to make the right plays that helped him get to the 40-point mark last night.
Just being aggressive, wanting to get out in transition and run. But wanted to attack their smaller guards, put pressure on them, get to the basket, get to the free throw line.
Was there any motivation for you after hearing that you didn't make an All-NBA team?
No, I wouldn't say that.
What would you say?
I mean, we 2 games from the finals, so, you know, honestly, I don't got the time to give a
How about that from Jaylen Brown? Doesn't mince words there. He's obviously feels slighted, and I can appreciate it. He's putting up big numbers in the playoffs. The ring more important to him than worrying about individual accolades. So great stuff from him. Jaylen Brown, obviously a big part of what the Celtics are trying to do. We got a little bit here from our social media team, Christian DeBlock, to talk a little bit about Rafael Nadal in the French Open. Winner of 22 Grand Slams, including a record 14 French Open titles. He holds a 112-3 record at the event, but he will be facing Alexander Zverev in the first round. He's the number 4 seeded player in this tournament.
The player everyone is talking about in the build-up to the French Open is Rafa Nadal. The Spanish superstar missed most of the 2023 season through injury, but in recent weeks, he's been able to get more and more reps. The French Open is on clay. If you look at the history of men's tennis, no player has been more dominant on that surface than Rafa Nadal. Since 2005, 14 of the last 19 French Opens have been won by Rafa Nadal. But given his age and his lack of tennis over the last 16 months, I don't expect him to win this tournament. Can he get to a quarterfinal or a semifinal? Absolutely. But if he goes up against an athletic Carlos Alcaraz or a Jannik Sinner over 3 sets, he won't win.
All right, big challenge there to play Zverev. It's a rematch of their 2022 semifinal where after 3 hours and 13 minutes in just the second set, Zverev had to retire with an ankle injury. So see what happens on Sunday when they face off. Very early Sunday morning on the East Coast, 6 a.m. For all my West Coast tennis fans, maybe just don't go to bed. So to close it out here, Joe Madden, one of our hockey analysts here on the grid, talks about previewing Game 2 of the NHL Eastern Conference Finals with my New York Rangers, trying to get back to even here against the Florida Panthers.
The puck will drop tonight for Game 2 of the Eastern Conference between the Florida Panthers and the New York Rangers. Now, the Rangers looking to get revenge after the Florida Panthers did beat them at home in Game 1 and recorded the shutout. No worse feeling than that. The Florida Panthers winning it 3-0. Bobrovsky playing a brilliant game. Now, the New York Rangers are a strong team, but they started off slow in that last game, and I'm expecting more out of them. Straight out of the gate in this one, they were held to only 5 shots on goal in that first period, but by the time the third came around, they were able to record 12. I'm looking for them to be able to light the lamp in this game and be able to take a win here at home. They can't go into Florida with this series down 0-2. Give me the New York Rangers at -106 on the money line. Back to you, Mike.
All right, well, I hope that does happen. I watched the game the other night, and Joe highlighted the thing that was disconcerting. They just could not get pucks on net early. They had 9 shots on goal more than halfway through the second period. They weren't creating any scoring chances. They hit a couple of pipes as well. So in what was a pretty tight game, 1-0 for a long period of time, it was unfortunate the Rangers just couldn't get any pucks on net. It was 1-0 3 minutes into the game, and then it stayed that way for another 2 periods. So we'll see if they can get back on. Rafa Nadal rooting for him, and obviously Jaylen Brown continues to impress. With like a few seconds left, I'll just say the NFL moving to automating spots of the football is something that I have been talking about for years on this network. I couldn't be happier that they are considering doing it. I have said openly here and everywhere I possibly could that the dumbest thing in sports is asking NFL officials to eyeball the spot of the football, whether it's a punt or a first down or whatever it is. So moving that direction is absolutely vital, and I couldn't be happier. It's way too late, but I'll take what I can get. Jim Gazzale when we come back on NewsWire.
The Bostonian versus the book.
That was Aaron Rodgers' thing. To your quarterback in the first round.
Yeah.
It's a luxury pick. We don't have the luxury. We're trying to win right now. I'm in a window right now, and you're going to say, no, we're going to plan this for the future. With a guy who had 4 seasons ended by injury. 4. Like, Michael Penix is a walking injury. Like, what are you doing taking him in the top 10?
The Bostonian versus the book.
And now you have to qualify, and these majors, you got to go do it, man. Like, and it just comes off really petty to sit up there and be like, I'm not.
You know what you signed up for. So I don't like the pettiness, and I 100% think Taylor Gooch should be in the major championships. So in the same note, I'm saying this, but also it's like, hey, this is the world in which we live in right now, and you don't deserve anything.
Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
NewsWire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
late
sort of
night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Back on NewsWire, bringing in Jim Gazzale from Legal Sports Report. Big news. We previewed it last week, Jim. We were on last Friday together about the Preakness. So Seize the Gray wins, and there's good news coming out of the race as well. They had dipped to a 3-year low in last year's handle, but it looks like it rebounded quite nicely.
Yeah, exactly, Mike. And we did touch on this briefly towards the end of the segment last week. And, of course, that was before the race. So we finally get the official handle figures for Preakness 2024. And all of the pools, the win, play, show wagering, exactas, trifectas, and even all of the multi-race wagers ending with the Preakness total handle hit $57.9 million. So a nice little rebound over last year, up 6% from last year when, like you just said, handle hit a 3-year low in 2023. Record handle still a bit off of that pace from 2021 when horse players put $68.7 million into the Preakness in 2021. Another bright spot that I found quite interesting in the lead up to the Preakness was the future bet. And the future wagers in horse racing are kind of few and far between. There's some sports books in Vegas that offer it, early on in the year and through the Kentucky Derby. There is obviously the Kentucky Derby future wager that Churchill Downs puts on. But this Preakness future wager is relatively new. This was just the second year for it. So $388,400 in total handle for the Preakness future bet this year. And that was up about 28% over last year. So a positive sign there. And I reached out to some people with the Preakness to ask them, basically, what do you think contributed to that increase in that future bet? And of course, they pointed towards the ability to just be involved in a future wager. We've seen the popularity of them grow in the sports betting landscape. So adding that to the horse betting wagering menu was a positive. The other thing that I thought was pretty interesting too is that they opened up the initial Preakness future wager back in February, kind of when maybe more casual horse players start paying attention to horse racing in the lead up to the Kentucky Derby. So some of the folks with the Preakness were telling me that they strategically opened it that early just so they could be in the conversation, in the mix, as people are starting to pay attention to horse racing with the Kentucky Derby on the horizon. So just sort of the popularity of future bets in general, along with a little bit of strategic marketing, getting in the mix earlier on this year, helped boost that Preakness future betting handle.
And obviously also related to the race, the 8 horses ran this year, 7 last year. I think the Preakness sometimes is, it's the middle of the crown jewel races, and sometimes it gets overlooked by the Derby and the Belmont, but it is also fair to say that we've seen horses in the Preakness, especially from the Derby to the Preakness in the last few years. There's been a lot of shifting. There's been some favorites that have been scratched or not raced moving forward, saving them for Belmont. So I think some of those dynamics have obviously had an impact on the variability of the betting handle. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And I think in the last couple of years, there's even been plenty of instances where the Derby horse, the Derby winner, doesn't even run back in the Preakness. So we saw the Derby winner, Mystic Dan, come back in the Preakness this year. He finished second, and he's right up the road from me here now in Saratoga, hopefully getting ready for the Belmont. So hopefully we see him again in the next couple weeks.
Great stuff. So let's move over to some state business. Again, Jim Gazzale from the Legal Sports Report. 3 Vermont sports betting apps. This is your tweet from yesterday morning. 3 Vermont sports betting apps won over $1.7 million in April and sent close to $532,000 back to the state in taxes. So an interesting bump for Vermont sports betting apps.
Yeah, and Mike, I remember when you were on probably maybe 6 weeks ago, we touched on the amount of tourism that has
that's right.
happened in Vermont and kind of boosted their overall sports betting market as they launched back in January. So I was speaking to the regulators in Vermont, and they were telling me that initial week, that first full week in April 4th through the 10th, they received their highest tax revenue payment from the sports books during that week. It was the highest tax payment for them since February. And funny enough, that week featured the Final Four, obviously the national championship game, as well as the solar eclipse, like we talked about several weeks ago, Mike, and just this massive influx of tourists going to Vermont to see the solar eclipse, betting on the apps, and ultimately pumping that money through the sports books, and then those sports books are obviously having to send a bit of a tax payment back to the state. So they were quite pleased with what they saw in April, the Vermont sports betting regulators. They did tell me, though, it's difficult for them to say for sure, yes, this tax payment was due to the tourists from coming into the state to see the solar eclipse. So I think we can make an educated guess and say that likely played a bit of a role, at least in that tax payment. One of the other interesting things too that I really enjoy about these Vermont sports betting reports is that they provide a lot of additional statistics that perhaps some of the other states don't exactly share. So in April, on the whole, 40,876 players during the month. So close to 41,000 people in Vermont, whether state residents or people from out of state, betting on sports through those 3 sports betting apps in Vermont, FanDuel, DraftKings, and Fanatics. They placed 738,000 bets with an average betting amount at $23. So just some additional context that we don't get from every state, which is of course why Vermont seems to be intriguing to me, I guess. But those tourism numbers from the solar eclipse, Final Four, just a lot of March Madness action kind of wrapping up in April, along with that tourism event, certainly helped the bottom line for state regulators.
And clearly a fellow New England state, right? Connecticut, a lot of UConn fans closer to the action, maybe living in Vermont or nearby in Massachusetts and can get up to Vermont to place some bets. All right, last one for you. The Indiana sports betting handle returned to 2022 levels in April as bettors staked nearly $394 million during the month. The market dipped a bit as Ohio and Kentucky entered the betting market. I think we saw similar dips when New York entered. It impacted New Jersey. We see this anytime neighboring states open up a betting market. It's going to impact that state, correct?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Mike. And I think this is also why I've been kind of drawn to this Indiana market, just kind of having, more competition on both sides. Ohio launched in early 2023, and we saw a couple of months of declines in handle in Indiana. And then they get hit with Kentucky launching its online market in the fall in late September. But they seem to have, regained their footing nicely. The handle figure said near $394 million, surpassing 2022 levels, which is kind of what we've been looking to see the market rebound to, and they did in April. So we'll see as they get into the dog days of summer here just how well that trend continues.
Great stuff from Jim Gazzale from Legal Sports Report. Coach Young on next. I'll talk to Jim about his Jets next time. Sorry we didn't have time, Jim.
The Bostonian versus the book.
That was Aaron Rodgers' thing. Took a quarterback in the first round.
Yeah.
It's a luxury pick. We don't have the luxury. We're trying to win right now. I'm in a window right now, and you're going to say, no, we're going to plan this for the future. With a guy who had 4 seasons ended by injury. 4. Like, Michael Penix is a walking injury. Like, what are you doing taking him in the top 10?
The Bostonian versus the book.
And now you have to qualify, and these majors, you got to go do it, man. Like, and it just comes off really petty to sit up there and be like, I'm not.
You know what you signed up for. So I don't like the pettiness, and I 100% think Taylor Gooch should be in the major championships. So in the same note of saying this, but also it's like, hey, this is the world in which we live in right now, and you don't deserve anything.
Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
NewsWire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not one, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
late
sort of
night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Coach James Young, lead basketball analyst on the grid. And, Coach, we saw Jaylen Brown get it done yet again last night. Boston goes out to a 2-0 lead in the series. The Pacers have been here before, but clearly I think what's interesting about the dynamic for the Celts is that Jason Tatum, first-team All-NBA. And I think there are moments as basketball fans, analysts, hosts of shows like this, we sometimes take for granted what the number one star is going to do. Giannis on the Bucks, Tatum on the Celts. And this season, often comes down to how well, a couple of years ago, Chris Middleton can play. And now the Celts season is coming down to, can Jaylen Brown rise to another level and be consistently a great player? He wasn't able to do it last year, game in, game out. But right now, you're seeing his A game.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. Great to be on with you as always. And Jaylen Brown has been absolutely fantastic so far in this series. And, you know, poor Indiana, just the coaching job by Rick Carlisle at the end of game one completely flipped this series, because I think now you're looking at a case where I don't even know if you're going to get a game if you're Indiana. I don't care that it's heading back to Indiana for games 3 and 4. I think that's the game that Indiana needed. But to me, Jaylen Brown's been fantastic. And I think it speaks to what you have in Boston. And I think this is what is amazing about them. Mike, they can beat you so many different ways offensively. If it's not Tatum, it's Brown. If it's not Brown, it's White. If it's not White, when he's healthy, it's Porzingis. If it's not Porzingis, then you go, to Drew Holiday, who is capable of getting 20 points in a game. We haven't even talked about the bench and how well guys like Peyton Pritchard has played, how well at times Sam Hauser has played, even the minutes out of Luke Cornett, Al Horford defying father time. They got so many guys, Mike, that it becomes really hard for a team to stop because you don't have enough defenders. And I think Jaylen Brown's ability and taking his game to another level, also his ability to now, I think, go to his left better, which was kind of been exposed in years past, particularly by Miami, has really taken his game to another level. And now what I'm going to say is this. I think you're going to start to tilt the defense versus Brown. The problem is Tatum is probably going to get loose in Indiana.
Yeah, he could drop a 50 burger on you if you pull the defense away from him. Halliburton's injury will obviously impact us now. It's aggravating the injury that he had during the season, which is a huge problem. And I start to wonder, speaking of injuries, that we've heard a little bit about we've heard some about Porzingis all throughout the postseason. Can he, all throughout this last series at least? Is he going to come back game 3? Is he going to come back game 4? If the Celtics take a 3-0 lead, I think you might even rest Porzingis until the finals.
You could, unless you want to get the rust off of him. Maybe a little bit of a minutes restriction, 15 minutes. Play him in 3 or 4 minute chunks just to kind of get him going. I would suspect that if it's 3-0, I know it sounds crazy. If it's 3-0, Mike, I think there's a better chance he plays game 4 than if it's 2-1. If it's 3-0, no pressure, little bit of minutes, maybe Porzingis plays a little bit. He's got to shake the rust off. And I think, honestly, if you're Boston, I know this sounds crazy. I think you need a series. You need to be challenged. Because my concern is they're going to get to the finals, and they're going to roll through everyone in the East, and the West has been far more competitive, that they may be caught asleep at the wheel, especially game 1 of the NBA Finals.
Yeah, odds via FanDuel right now. Celtics to win in 4 games, -140. To win in 5 games, +175. 6 games, +900. And 7 games, +1,500. I kind of like the gentleman's sweep at 5 games, but with Halliburton injured now, I think I'm out. I'll let it ride. So let's go to Dallas at the T-Wolves. That's tonight. Dallas obviously leads the series 1-0. And the T-Wolves are 5.5-point favorites tonight, 220 on the money line with a total of 207. What do you think is in store tonight in Minnesota?
I think number one is you got to get far better play by the 2 stars of Minnesota, and that's Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns. There was talk about the fact that they didn't play fast enough. I don't want people to think of Minnesota as Indiana in regards to pace. But a guy like Anthony Edwards, if you watch him closely, Mike, he needs space to operate. And Dallas is really good defensively where they can load up their defense. I think Dallas runs more tonight to try and get him the ball in space. I talked about this earlier with Ben and Donnie on the early line. Over 7.5 points in the first quarter for Ant, plus money. I would take a look at that. And I would suspect also, look at Naz Reid's props, over 10.5 points. Folks, they're playing this high pick and roll with Kyrie and Luka. They're drawing away Gobert. Not effective. Naz Reid's been really good. I think there's an uptick in minutes tonight for the sixth man of the year in Naz Reid.
Naz Reid was incredible in Game 7 of the previous series as well, late in that game, just grabbing rebounds, active everywhere. All right, NBA championship odds, Celtics -210, Dallas +370, T-Wolves +550, and Pacers +7,500. The one thing I would say is if you're a T-Wolves backer, get in now, because if they win tonight, these odds will flip immediately, and they'll be at least even with Dallas. All right, one more for you. Indiana Fever at Los Angeles Sparks. Indiana 0-5 on the season. Sparks, but they are favored tonight, laying 2.5 on the road in LA.
My concern with the Fever is this. It's not been Caitlin Clark, who is getting better. It's the play of Aaliyah Boston shooting under 40% of the floor. She shoots around the lane. Kelsey Mitchell hasn't gotten it going. And the fact that Ready Mike, they've played 5 games already because they are putting this poor kid on national TV every night for ratings. They need practice. Mike, I'm going to go on a limb here. I'm going to say Sparks money line as the underdog gets it done. This team could be 0-7 Indiana after this game because next game they play the Aces. Look at maybe Indiana not to make the WNBA playoffs, +148 on FanDuel.
Good stuff, as always, from Coach Young. He's right. She's been on national TV every time. A young player is going to get worn out with a schedule like that. Doesn't matter how tough she is. She's playing against much better competition now. I'll be back with my last licks right after this.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
That was Aaron Rodgers' thing. Took a quarterback in the first round.
Yeah.
It's a luxury pick. We don't have the luxury. We're trying to win right now. I'm in a window right now, and you're going to say, no, we're going to plan this for the future. With a guy who had 4 seasons ended by injury. 4. Like, Michael Penix is a walking injury. Like, what are you doing taking him in the top 10?
The Bostonian versus the Book.
And now you have to qualify, and these majors, you got to go do it, man. Like, and it just comes off really petty to sit up there and be like, I'm not.
You know what you signed up for. So I don't like the pettiness, and I 100% think Taylor Gooch should be in the major championships. So in the same note, I'm saying this, but also it's like, hey, this is the world in which we live in right now, and you don't deserve anything.
Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
NewsWire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not 1, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Close it out here on NewsWire. Thank you to Craig Mish for letting me step in for him today. Appreciate it. And thanks, as always, to my producer, Michael Cohen, the executive produced by Joe Frizo, and graphics, Steve Armato, EJ Vitez, and thanks to Luke Kane for directing the show today. So before I get out of here, we're going to do our last licks, few topics here to close out on. Bronny James. So Bronny James now has gone from part-time player at USC, who obviously is dealing with a major health issue, and effectively a bench player at USC, to going to the NBA draft combine and potentially elevating his status to a possible draft pick. Now, I'm not hating on the kid in any way, but I think we all would concur that his father is having a massive influence on what is happening here. And it has gotten to the point now where there's so much buzz about Bronny and him playing fairly well at the NBA draft combine, although not well enough by most scouts' indications to signify that he is a surefire NBA player. But it feels like conspiracy theories abound now that Bronny James is getting the most bets to be picked number 1 in the NBA draft at BetMGM Sportsbooks. Now, people are always going to like to throw bombs and throw long shots, but if Bronny James is the number 1 pick in the NBA draft, there's not too many things that genuinely surprise me anymore in sports, but color me the most surprised I've ever been at a draft pick. If he goes in the first round, I'll be pretty shocked. I just have conceded at this point that somebody's going to take a swing, Lakers or whomever else. But if he's the number 1 pick, color me the most surprised I've ever seen at any draft pick. So there you go. Bronny James, one of the last licks. Moving on, Max Crosby. According to Adam Schefter, the Raiders reworked the contract of 3-time Pro Bowl defensive end Max Crosby to give him a $6 million raise for the upcoming season. Team also moved an additional $1.2 million into 2025. According to Schefter, the Raiders wanted to reward their leader, culture setter, and one of the best players in the league with the intent of keeping him in Las Vegas for years to come. No additional deals were added, but Max Crosby has been an absolute revelation, a mid-round draft pick that has become a feared edge rusher, and whenever you watch a Raiders game, the defense starts and ends with him. He's a wrecking ball of the highest order. He is mentioned in the same sentence as T.J. Watt and Myles Garrett and Nick Bosa. So he's through 2026, and this pushes his average value up to, right now, it's roughly... Let's see what we got. Yeah, he's going to see $24 million this year, $27 million the next 2 years. So Max Crosby, one of the highest paid players in the league. I think there's some additional flexibility here for NFL teams simply because the salary cap is raised so much. It saw nearly a $20 million jump this year and may see another one next year. So I think teams seeing they have extra cap room will reward players in the short term in order to keep them happy. Last one here. Daniel Jones has no doubt that he'll be ready for Week 1. Jones was injured in the November 5th game against the Raiders, and it will be roughly, call it 9, 10, almost 11 months from the time he was injured until he makes his comeback. 11's aggressive, about 10 months. So could put himself in a position where he's ready to go in Week 1. And we'll see if Giants fans are happy with that result. We'll see if Daniel Jones can come back and be more effective. Obviously, 2 years ago with Brian Daboll, he had a career year which led to an extension, but has put the Giants in an odd kind of purgatory where they're still not committed to him long term, but they don't have any better options on the roster unless you consider Drew Lock a surefire better option. I would say most people do not. So I think the Giants are the type of team, despite a low win total number, that people are going to be looking to bet the under on. I'll be evaluating these all throughout the summer on shows like this and everywhere else to let you know what my thoughts on the futures are. But the Giants on paper are in a world of trouble. They've got a Washington team that's obviously in a new regime and rebuilding with a rookie quarterback. But they've got a Philly team which has reworked the roster and lost some veteran leadership, but still far more talented on paper and addressed some things through the draft and free agency that should help them. Dallas Cowboys, are they a threat to win the Super Bowl? Maybe not, but they're a lot better than the Giants. Thanks for everything on NewsWire. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, everybody.